In the early medieval period, the Mediterranean functioned as an untamed, high-entropy environment. For a maritime trader, the open water was defined by sudden violence, unpredictable weather, and the constant threat of heavily armed raiding parties. This created a severe mathematical problem. In economic terms, individual risk acted as a persistent thermodynamic drain on wealth. Look at the financial reality for an independent patrician family. They could aggregate massive amounts of silver and source the finest eastern silks, but a single localized variable, a sudden squall off the coast of Crete, or an ambush by Genoese privateers, instantly erased their capital. On a single voyage, a merchant might get lucky, but across a lifetime of trade, 10, 20, 30 crossings, the cumulative probability of encountering a fatal event approaches 100%. For the independent actor, the sea is a machine for eventually destroying equity. Contrast the volatile reality of the sea with the hyper-rational environment of the Venetian Senate. The patricians sitting in the Doge's palace understood that relying on individual luck was an unsustainable economic model. The state recognized that achieving absolute multi-century dominance over global trade required the systemic elimination of this localized risk. To achieve this, Venice executed a precise geopolitical pivot. The state entirely nationalized the transportation layer of the maritime supply chain. The government decided that the chaotic variables of the open ocean could be subdued through the brute force application of state capital. They stopped asking independent families to build their own boats. In 1104, the Republic established the Arsenale. Behind this monumental gate, Venice centralized all naval production into a single government-controlled district, applying massive state infrastructure directly to the physical requirements of global trade. The Arsenale functioned as a highly regulated industrial assembly line. It standardized the production of timber, the weaving of complex rigging, and hull designs for heavy galleys. The sheer volume of capital required to run this facility was staggering. The Venetian state absorbed manufacturing costs and physical liabilities that would have bankrupted even the wealthiest individual merchant dynasties. By consolidating the physical construction of every ship into a strict state monopoly, Venice permanently solved the hardware problem of maritime risk. With the hardware secured, the Republic turned to the commercial hubs of the city to write the software that would govern it. The Arsenal churned out galere da mercato, or great merchant galleys. The state did not design these ships for exploration. They were strictly engineered as heavy, standardized shipping containers. Through the Incanto, the state auctioned volumetric cargo space. Investors utilized hull segments they didn't build or maintain. The massive physical costs of the hull and crew were entirely socialized by the government. Meanwhile, cargo profits remained completely privatized through fractional ownership. The math of disaster shifted completely. If a galley sank off the coast of Cyprus, the state treasury absorbed the loss of the vessel itself. The individual investors, having diversified their goods across dozens of different hulls, only lost a minor fraction of their portfolios. The Incanto insulated the patrician class from systemic ruin. It converted volatile maritime trading into a predictable, corporate investment vehicle. Owning the hardware and auctioning the cargo space yielded no advantage if the ships themselves moved unpredictably. To control the variables of the sea, Venice required a unified system of motion. Before a captain could board a galley, the Senate handed down an exhaustively detailed, micromanaged set of instructions. These wax-sealed orders dictated the exact hour the ship was required to leave the lagoon, the precise speed it was expected to maintain, and the unalterable sequence of its port calls. The schedule was enforced with mathematical rigidity. The Senate placed strict numeric caps on the maximum allowable layover days at any foreign port. Time was tracked, calculated, and audited. If a captain lingered in Alexandria to wait for a better price on pepper, or deviated from the route to avoid a storm, the state inflicted severe financial penalties upon his return. History often romanticizes the independent merchant adventurer, chasing profit based on gut instinct. In the Venetian system, independent decision-making was effectively a crime. The Republic systematically stripped human intuition and variance from seafaring. They replaced it with an inflexible, mathematically enforced clockwork algorithm. This portolan chart illustrates the Venetian view of the Mediterranean basin. It is an optimized network of transit points, with the open water treated as a set of defined vectors connecting Europe to the east. Operating on this network were the Mude, massive, heavily armed, state-run mega-convoys, operating on permanent, looping schedules. The Senate established rigid, permanent transit corridors. The Alexandria route handled Egyptian spices. The Flanders route moved northern wool. These fleets departed the lagoon in synchronized waves. They moved across the water like trains on a track, arriving at specific coordinates on exact dates. Because the schedule forced dozens of heavy galleys to travel simultaneously, the Mude possessed an immense, unified military posture. They sailed as floating fortresses. The Mude grid successfully paved over the dangers of the Mediterranean, replacing untamed waters with a heavily fortified, industrialized conveyor belt. By clustering state-funded warships, complete with standardized cannons and professional crossbowmen, the convoys generated an overwhelming density of firepower. The economic impact of piracy was suppressed by the sheer scale of the defense. Loss, which once defined the merchant experience, was reduced to a marginal operating cost. Looking at this antique map, you can observe the contrast. While Venetian assets moved in tight groupings, the ships of their commercial rivals navigated alone. Competing nations like Genoa or the Byzantine remnant relied on scattered independent merchants and ad hoc scheduling. Because they could not standardize their defense or their speed, they could not guarantee the delivery of goods to northern buyers. The Republic of Venice did not construct its vast commercial empire by outsailing, out-exploring, or out-fighting its rivals. They dominated by out-scheduling them. By removing individual risk and enforcing a strict timetable, the Republic built a supply chain that outproduced every competitor. They achieved a monopoly by transforming the volatility of the sea into a reliable, state-managed schedule.